Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to College Football Red Zone as we find ourselves on the eve and on the precipice of week number 12 of the college football season, where we start to really see that change in terms of who are the pretenders and who are the true contenders, not only for bowl game eligibility, but we're also talking about conference championship eligibility, and of course that all-elusive college football playoff spot, where we have seen Indiana lock up a playoff spot last weekend. Still 11 more spots left to play for. And so what we're going to do here in tonight's live stream is we are going to go ahead and take a comprehensive look at every single game happening over the course of week number 12. And what we will find ourselves doing as well is what we are going to do. And let me go ahead and see if I can. Actually, I like the other way more. What we're going to do is, maybe we won't go ahead and have too comprehensive of a breakdown necessarily, but what we are going to do, though, is, I'm going to give you a quick preview of what I think is going to happen in the game and predicting who I think is going to win. Some of these other games, I'll preview more than others because there might be more implications on the line, or it might be a game that we're going to preview more in depth later on in the week. Once those new CFP rankings come out, we are planning on live streaming tomorrow, reacting to the newest live college football playoff rankings that are going to come out later tonight. So we're going to try to get this done before 7 o'clock tonight, not just for the CFP rankings, but we also have action here tonight, man. And I don't know about you guys. Who am I as a red-blooded American if I did not enjoy the midweek action, right? So we're going to go ahead, go through all the games. But before we jump into it, need you guys to do a couple of things for me. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. If you do have to be brand new to the channel, that does help me grow on the YouTube platform. And if you're watching this on Twitch, make sure you give me a follow on Twitch as well. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it, starting with tonight's games. We do have what we got going on in terms of the Tuesday action. Going to start things off, Kent State and Akron. Now, this is a battle between 4 and 6 teams. That being said, only one of these teams are able to go to a bowl game because Akron is not eligible for bowl season because they're literally too stupid. Kent State, their season is still alive this late in the year. Now, that being said, Akron is favored. I do think it's going to be a little bit closer with what the betting markets are going to say, but for the bit, we're going to go with Akron here in this one. I think Akron's going to win this game at home, win the battle of the wagon wheel, get their 5th win in this season. And wouldn't it be the funniest thing if we do end up seeing Akron get their 6th win next week? They do play Bowling Green next weekend. It is a winnable game for the Akron Zips. They get the 6-6 and just not even go to a bowl game because of those APR restrictions. That would be just completely diabolical behavior. And I'm completely all for it as well. So we're going to go with Akron winning for a bit. Kent State is a much improved team from last year. Got to give them some flowers. Now, on the opposite spectrum of the MAC, we got Ohio taking on Western Michigan. Two teams that are going to be competing to get to Detroit at the end of the season. Both these teams do come in, believe 4-1 on the season in MAC play. So a lot of implications there to help break that deadlock. It's a four-way tie for first place. Only 2 teams can go to the MAC championship game, obviously. Give me Western Michigan here. I really love what Lance Taylor has done. First year in Kalamazoo. This game is going to be at home. It's going to be rocking here tonight. So, I'm feeling a little spicy here today. I think I'm going to go with Western Michigan taking down the Ohio Bobcats. So maybe a little bit of an upset. 2 really good teams in the MAC. Very excited about that matchup in particular. Now, we'll go ahead and move on to Wednesday. Wednesday, we do have Buffalo taking on Central Michigan. The Buffalo Bulls, they've been a little bit disappointing this year. I've had them as maybe like a sleeper pick, to maybe be in that CFP conversation late in the year. That just hasn't happened. But Central Michigan, they have been surprising this year on the other hand. So I think Central Michigan carrying a little bit more momentum late in the year. I'm rolling with Central Michigan here. Give me the Chippewas getting their win against Buffalo. That's going to help them stay in the race. They're only 1 game back as well. A lot of teams. We're talking about 7 teams that are still alive, for the MAC championship, right? It's going to be very close down the stretch. Now, Toledo taking on Miami of Ohio. Toledo, this is a must-win game for them in order to remain alive in the MAC championship race. Miami, on the other hand, they're definitely in the thick of things. Been a slow start for them, but they've really picked things up here in the second half of the season. Now, for Toledo, even though it's been a disappointing year for the Rockets, I still think Toledo is the most talented team in the conference, and I think they show it here tonight. I think Toledo finds a way to go on the road, beats Miami of Ohio, and they're going to get a win against the Toledo Rockets. That will help them get bowl eligibility as well as drag down the Miami Redhawks. Now, last game that we do have here for Wednesday, we got Northern Illinois taking on UMass. Not going to say too much here. UMass, worst team in the nation by a long shot. They're the only winless team remaining. NIU, it's been a rough year for NIU, but at the same time, I don't see NIU led by Thomas Hammock. I think Thomas Hammock's going to outcoach UMass on the opposite side. Even though it's been a rough year for the Huskies, I think they find a way to get the win on the road against UMass Wednesday night. Now, for Thursday, we actually have a standalone game in the Sun Belt. It's going to be Troy going on the road against Old Dominion. Old Dominion, one of those teams where, they were looking really good, especially after the Indiana game. And, there was some talk about maybe Old Dominion can make a run at the CFP. Well, they fell apart relatively quickly after those talks started. I just don't have a good vibe with Old Dominion right now. They're kind of stumbling to the finish. Maybe one of those teams that are running out of gas in the month of November. Troy, on the other hand, I know they had the loss last week, but at the same time, I think Troy carrying a little bit more momentum at this time. I'm going to go a little bit on the ledge here. I think Troy's going to pull the upset off against Old Dominion. Now, moving on to Friday Night Lights, we got 2 games here. Oregon taking on Minnesota. Not going to spend much time here. I think Oregon, they are coming off of a physical game, but Minnesota, they're going to have to make a cross-country road trip to take on this Oregon Ducks team. I think Oregon is the much superior team as well, and PJ Fleck, when traveling on the road against some of the superior competition, they have not looked good on the road this year for PJ Fleck. So Oregon, I think it's going to be a splattering for the Ducks. Clemson and Louisville is going to be really interesting now. Now, Louisville is definitely in the hunt for the ACC title, even with the loss last week to Cal. So, maybe this is a better spot for them because they get to refocus. But at the same time, though, Clemson is one of those teams where they've been really disappointing this year under Dabo Swinney, but Clemson still has one of the most talented rosters in the entire country. And when they're on, I mean, they can really give, some of these ACC contenders, which I'm using very liberally because there's 5 or 7. The ACC is a mess. My point is, though, is that I think Clemson is going to actually pull this win out, maybe finding something here late. They take down Louisville, and then Louisville starting to run out of gas here a little bit as well. So give me the Clemson Tigers. Now we go ahead and get things rolling here into Saturday ball. And we got Eastern Michigan and Ball State. Eastern Michigan finding something here in the second half under Chris Creighton. How about Ball State? They've been a little bit of a nice surprise this year. And Ball State still in the thick of things, 3-2 in conference play. I love the fact that Ball State is at home for this one, while Eastern Michigan, I haven't been as high on them. Because this game is happening at home, I'm going to go with a slight upset here. Give me the Ball State Cardinals here keep themselves in the hunt. And hey, maybe if they get a little bit of help, maybe Ball State could sneak their way to the MAC championship game in the great state of Michigan, happening in Detroit, where the Lions play. Now, Indiana taking on Wisconsin. Listen, Wisconsin had a very spirited effort against Washington. They earned that win, but Indiana's just a completely different animal. Indiana almost got gotten by Penn State, but Fernando Mendoza did have his Heisman Trophy moment. I think Indiana plays a lot more focus from here on out, knowing that any of these teams, whether it's a Wisconsin or a Purdue, that they'll play next week, Indiana could lose at any given time. I think Curt Cinetti is going to refocus the boys, and I think Indiana is going to roll against Wisconsin. Now, Michigan and Northwestern. This is actually a sneaky good game here. Northwestern led under David Braun. Northwestern, they play hard, man. Besides the the Oregon game, Northwestern really has not necessarily been blown out in Big Ten conference play. Like this is a decent football team here, guys. I could definitely see it being one of those sneaky good games where, and we did see Michigan struggle against Purdue as well. So it's not like Michigan is absolutely invincible by any means. So I'm rolling with Michigan here, but keep an eye out for this game. I think this game, I think it's listed. If I could find what the game line was for that in particular, I had it right in front of me. Okay, so they were a 12.5-point favorite. I actually think Northwestern can cover here. This could be a sneaky good game on the horizon. Now, on the other hand, you got USF taking on the Navy. Listen, Navy, I think they've been exposed at this point. They started off 7-0, but then they started to play programs that have had a pulse, whether it's North Texas, and then most recently Notre Dame. Navy has gotten crushed. South Florida might be one of those teams where maybe they don't have the same defensive front as Notre Dame has, but at the same time, though, USF, that is a really scary team. That might be one of the most equipped teams to actually go into the college football playoff and potentially win a game. So I think it's going to be a long day for Navy. The one thing that Navy does have at its advantage is that it is going to be a home game. So maybe like the cold weather could be an equalizer, playing against a team from South Florida late in the year. But I think South Florida is a much more superior team. And I think USF is going to come out on top here, proving why I have them ranked in the top 25 on my personal ballot. But with that being said, but it could get interesting, but I think USF wins pretty comfortably. Now, next game that we have, Kansas State against Oklahoma State. Now, Kansas State, they have been surging. We did see them lose a tough one to Texas Tech, but, Kansas State, in spite of what the record actually shows, Kansas State is actually not a team that you really want to mess with right now. They're able to beat Kansas convincingly, beat TCU convincingly. They nearly beat Baylor as well. Texas Tech has just been dominating anybody. Oklahoma State, they have no pulse here. So I think Hal's going to have to literally freeze over Oklahoma State to win this game. I'm going to go with Kansas State here. Get the 5-5, and they have a fighting shot to get to a bowl game if they can beat either Utah or Colorado. Now, Notre Dame and Pittsburgh, but I'm not going to get too deep into this one. We are going to preview this game later this week once the CFP rankings do come down, so keep an eye out on that on the channel. That being said, though, here's what I'll say about Pittsburgh. They've been playing a lot better football since they made the quarterback change. College game day is going to be there. This Pitt team, I think, is playing with a lot of momentum, a lot of passion. And Notre Dame, we've seen them in ranked matchups for the most part. They folded. They folded against Texas A&M. They folded against Miami. Pitt, I think, is right about the same level as Miami right now. Miami can beat them. Pitt surely can too. I think the 11.5 number is pretty disrespectful. I don't know if they win this game, but I think Pittsburgh can actually pull it off. It's going to be my call, my shot here. I think Pittsburgh actually does beat Notre Dame outright, and they get the win on College game day, and they become a serious playoff contender with the win. Now, next game that we have, Texas A&M and South Carolina. Listen, South Carolina does have some freak athletes out there on the field that could give Texas A&M trouble, but Texas A&M, they're looking like a death machine right now. They're coming off of 2 consecutive blowouts, blowing out LSU, blowing out Missouri. Both of those teams better than South Carolina right now. So South Carolina, they need this win in order to, keep those bowl hopes alive, but they got to go on the road and play against the 12th man. That's just not happening, boss. Now, Arizona and Cincinnati on the other hand. Listen, y'all already know I'm a Cincinnati Bearcats fan, so maybe a little bit of homerism here. So I'm going to roll with the Bearcats, not just because that's my team, but I think Cincinnati, they're genuinely the better team. I think like Arizona, they've had a nice season, but you're asking them to make a cross-country road trip. Cincinnati, it gets cold out there in the month of November. For those of you that are not familiar with the weather in the Buckeye State, this really is a good spot for Cincinnati, giving the Bearcats in order to get to, I believe it's 8-2 on the year. Been a great year for you under Scott Satterfield. Air Force is taking on UConn. Listen, tremendous amount of respect for the future officers of the greatest chair force on the history of the planet. But at the same time, when Air Force and UConn, they take the field and they go up against each other, there is only going to be one air raid that is going to be dominating. Is going to be the team from Storrs, Connecticut. UConn coming off a big win against Duke. And while this could be a potential letdown spot for the Huskies, Air Force, they don't have a defense, and that's a bad spot to be when you're going up against Joe Vagano, who's quietly been one of the best quarterbacks in the FBS. Put some respect on his name. All right, UTSA in Charlotte coming up here, man. UTSA, here's the thing. UTSA really struggled on the road. That being said, though, they're taking on Charlotte. Charlotte, I'm not going to lie to y'all. Y'all been ass. So if Charlotte pulls this game out, then, I mean, UTSA is just cursed on the road. I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to roll with UTSA in this one and not really think too much about it. LSU and Arkansas. Listen, man. This could be a high-scoring game here in the making, especially if LSU offensively is clicking a little bit, because Arkansas, they don't really have a pulse defensively. I do believe in the talent a little bit more at LSU than Arkansas. Wouldn't be surprised if Bobby Petrino finds a way to pull it out on the road, but I do think LSU pulls it out in Death Valley here in this one. Give me the LSU Tigers in that spot. West Virginia taking on Arizona State. Listen, shout out to West Virginia. They are on a 2-game winning streak, pulling off that upset against Houston and then beating Colorado as well. Arizona State, I think, is a little bit of a different story. Been a little bit of a disappointing year for the Sun Devils, but at the same time, still a lot of talent there in Arizona State. And again, you're asking West Virginia to make a cross-country road trip, so I'm going to roll with the Sun Devils in that one. In a battle of booty cheeks, we got Oregon State coming off of an embarrassing loss to Sam Houston. Yes, Sam Houston has a win, and that is all thanks to the Oregon State Beavers. They will be taking on the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, who, Tulsa, they have a pretty good offense over there. They got things rolling under Trey Lamb offensively. Could be an interesting little shootout here. I'm going to lean Oregon State, but I don't really feel good about it at the same time, though. This game could swing either way between these two teams. But don't feel the same way about Tennessee Tech and Kentucky. Now, Tennessee Tech, listen, this game, I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. Tennessee Tech coming in ranked top 5 in the FCS. This is not a bad FCS program as well. However, Kentucky, they're starting to figure things out, right? They're able to get the win against Florida, and not only get the win against Florida, but they absolutely dog-walked the Florida Gators. It was probably the best that they have looked the entire year. And not only did they beat Florida, they also beat Auburn as well. They're riding a 2-game winning streak. This is actually a more fascinating matchup to me than what people realize. I'm really curious to see what Tennessee Tech can do on the road against the FCS program, against a SEC, well, not an SEC power, but an SEC team. This might be more fascinating. It's going to be hard to watch because it's on SEC Plus. And also hate the fact that this game, that they're playing an FCS team in November. I think that's a little disgusting. I hope that's reformed when the SEC goes to 9 games, because we can't be having that in the month of November. It's disgusting. Okay, moving on though, because we got a lot to cover here. Marshall going on the road against Georgia State. Listen, the Thundering Herd, they gave James Madison a hard time. Now, James Madison, they did end up pulling away, but Marshall, much better football team than I think people give them credit for. Got a shout out to the Thundering Green Herd. They're playing much better than I anticipated. I was down on Marshall going into the season. But with that being said, Georgia State, they have just been downright awful this year. Del McGee, he's got to go, man. If he hasn't been fired yet, it's got to happen sooner than later. I'm going to roll with Marshall here. North Texas taking on UAB. Now, UAB has taken down one of the big guys in the American in Memphis, but that was the first game of the interim head coach bonus. But that's going to start to wear off a little bit as the season goes on. UAB kind of returning back to the mean, while North Texas, they still have a lot to play for. UAB, could not figure out how to stop Alabama State. I don't see them figuring out how to stop North Texas all of a sudden, unless it's kind of like the Memphis script where, they're like +3 or more in the turnover battle, get a bunch of penalties as well. I'm going to roll with the Mean Green here so that they get to, 9-1? It has to be one of their best starts in school history. UTEP taking on Missouri State should be a fascinating Conference USA battle. Listen, Missouri State, they've already clinched bowl eligibility. Now we'll see if they can actually get an invite to a bowl game, because they technically are ineligible for postseason play. But if there's not enough bowl eligible teams, then Missouri State will go somewhere. But until then, the Bears are playing very inspired, and don't look now, but Missouri State still very much in this Conference USA title hunt. They only have one loss in conference play. That one loss being to Western Kentucky. This Missouri State team, man, they have a lot to play for at this point in the year. UTEP, on the other hand, it's been a disaster in year 2 under Scott Walden. Give me UTEP dropping yet another game. Same thing for New Mexico and Colorado State as well. Colorado State has been a disaster this year. They have really underperformed expectations. Lobos, on the other hand, man, Lobos playing some really good ball, man. I'm not going to lie. Give me New Mexico to keep it rolling. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that would get New Mexico, 7-3? Hang on, let me see if I can find the standings here real fast. Yeah, New Mexico would be 7-3 if they find a way to win against Colorado State, Georgia Tech, and Boston College. All right, so Georgia Tech and Boston College. I'm going to roll with Georgia Tech here. They've looked a little bit shaky here in the last month of the season, but Boston College has been absolutely terrible. I don't see Boston College getting up for the Georgia Tech game. I just don't see it. Give me the Yellow Jackets here. Virginia and Duke. Okay, so Virginia did just suffer their second loss, so I think the wheels are starting to unfold, especially because they just scored 9 points against Wake Forest. Duke at the same time, while they're 5-4, they weirdly still control their own destiny to get to the ACC championship game. And if we're talking about playoff implications, I think Duke winning out and winning the ACC, that'll be a complete nightmare scenario for the conference. That is a scenario where, depending on what James Madison does and what the American does, that's a spot where the ACC doesn't get any teams. But in terms of the game on the field, I think Virginia is starting to fade, while Duke, they know how to play some good ball, and they know how to play spoiler. I think Duke plays spoiler here and beats Virginia in this one. James Madison, a 3:30 game on ESPN Plus, taking on Appalachian State over in the Sun Belt. Listen, James Madison, one of the most complete teams in the group of 5. While Appalachian State, they've been pretty inconsistent this year yet again, so I'm going to roll with James Madison to win that game. Penn State, listen, even though Penn State is 3-6, they have been playing some very inspired football in the last couple of weeks, especially, they should have won that Indiana game, but, unfortunately, they just couldn't get it done on that last couple of drives of the game. Michigan State, on the other hand, they really haven't been competitive as of late, so I actually think Penn State could go on the road and beat Michigan State here. Still a disappointing year for the Nittany Lions, but they can still find a way to get to a bowl game. Texas Tech is hosting UCF, and I'm not going to spend too much time here. Texas Tech, they've been dominating just about everybody with the exception of the Arizona State game. But that was with their backup quarterback. They have their starter back, UCF. They have not really held up against Big 12 competition very well at all. So I'm going to roll with Texas Tech in that one. Alabama and Oklahoma. This will be an interesting one. Not going to go too deep into this one because we are going to preview this later this week here on the channel. That being said, I think Alabama is a better team than Oklahoma. I think that even though both of these teams can't really run the ball that effectively, and the defenses, I think Oklahoma does have a slightly better defense. I do think Alabama, with that coaching advantage and a better quarterback and being at home, going to go with Alabama. We'll dive more deeply into that tomorrow night. But for now, we're rolling with Alabama here. Illinois and Maryland. What do we have for Illinois and Maryland? Maryland, since they've entered the month of October, they've been a completely different team and in a bad way here. While Illinois still has plenty to play for, even though they do already have those 3 losses. So we're going to roll with the Illinois Fighting Illini to get 7-3, and then Maryland's losing streak just continues to nosedive. That would put them on a 6-game losing streak. ULM taking on South Alabama. It's been a disaster for both these teams, particularly for South Alabama. Honestly, one of my most disappointing teams in the Sun Belt. I was very high on the Jaguars. But with that being said, ULM, since entering Sun Belt Conference play, ULM has been absolutely horrific. So I'm going to go with South Alabama here, but I don't feel super confident about that particular pick. Miami is taking on NC State. The Miami Hurricanes, sometimes they play down the competition, but NC State, they haven't really been able to stop anybody, and their offense has been inconsistent as well. So with them being at home, I don't see NC State pulling it off. Give me the Miami Hurricanes in this spot. San Jose State taking on Nevada. Nevada has shown absolutely no pulse themselves, so even though Nevada's been very disappointing this year, actually, and San Jose State's been very disappointing as well, I do think that they still have a little bit more talent than this Nevada team. Nevada has just looked completely hopeless under Chef Chody. I don't know how they right the ship, but it's going to be a multi-year effort, and we anticipated that in the preseason. Iowa is taking on USC. So here's the thing. Iowa has shown that they can play with the big boys in the Big Ten. They really have. So I'm going to pull for another upset here. This could be a game that we preview. We'll see if USC can handle Iowa's physicality, even though this is at home. But Iowa proves that they have a type of formula that does travel well, being a very good defense and being able to run the ball very effectively and being able to do just enough through the air in order to keep defenses guessing. I think Iowa can actually pull this off and beat USC on the road. I think that could absolutely happen. USF and then Texas State getting ready to go at it. Shout out to Charles Huffman. First year has Southern Miss, I believe, 7-2. If I could find Southern. Okay, yeah, they are 7-2. TJ Kinn, the transfer portal class, it has not clicked this year for whatever reason. And it's just been a rough year for the Bombcats. Don't see them turning it around all of a sudden in the month of November. They are who they are at this point. Give me Southern Miss to keep it rolling and maybe make things interesting for James Madison, because it might be USM and James Madison in the Sun Belt meeting up. Mid-Tennessee and Western Kentucky up next. Listen, here's my thing, man. Mid-Tennessee, they've been absolutely horrific this year, and that was going to be evident when they lost by multiple possessions to Austin Peay. Might need a new change in leadership, because year 200 Derek Mason, the former Vanderbilt coach, it just has not worked out. Western Kentucky, on the other hand, they are rolling. They have a lot to play for. So give me the Hilltoppers, man, in order to get their 8th win of the year. Memphis and East Carolina. Now, this is going to be a real fun one to see unfold right before our eyes. It's going to be a 4 o'clock game on ESPNU. And listen, East Carolina, they absolutely have the talent to play with anybody in the American. They do have a couple losses in conference play. They almost beat Tulane. I absolutely think, East Carolina gets it done at home. Give me the Pirates to take down Memphis. And speaking of Tulane, we see Tulane taking on FAU, Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic, been a fun story. They've been a solid offense this year, but I think Tulane, this is a good bounce back spot for them, being back at home after a tough loss to Memphis this past weekend. Give me the Green Wave in this one. I think the Green Wave gets it done. They get back on track. And as a 2-loss team in the G5, they're definitely not out of it in terms of that season. Not completely out of it. They do need a lot of help, though, in my opinion. Okay, New Mexico State and Tennessee. Listen, Tennessee, they're going to be a heavy favorite here. If they lose this game, it would be a complete shocker. I think Tennessee's going to get the 7-3 in after this New Mexico State game. North Carolina and Wake Forest. So North Carolina, they've actually been playing better as of late. But Wake Forest, man, they have really given some trouble to the ACC contenders, beating SMU and also at the same time beating Virginia this past weekend, really creating some chaos in the ACC. I think that continues here. I think they keep it rolling here, get the win at home against North Carolina. And we're talking about what, a 7-3 Wake Forest team? Raise your hand if you had that. I certainly did not. Wake Forest been playing really good first year under Jake Dickard, man. Definitely deserves some love. Liberty. Going on the road against FIU. Liberty coming off of a tough loss against, I believe it was Missouri State. While FIU, on the other hand, listen, here's what FIU has been doing, man. They've been a decent team in the Conference USA. They're coming off a big win. They dominated Mid-Tennessee State, exploded for 56 points. I think Liberty, still one of the better talent rosters in the CUSA, even though they've been absolutely disappointing this year, sitting at 4-5. I do think Liberty is able to go on the road and beat FIU. Should be a close game, though. Another swing game in the Sun Belt. It is Coastal Carolina and Georgia Southern. Coastal Carolina did a nice story for the Chanticleers this year. Not coming in with a ton of expectations, but a 6-3 with only one conference loss. Coastal Carolina absolutely does control its own path to the Sun Belt title game. They need to win out. They'll have James Madison at the end of the year as well. That's the thing, that one loss that Coastal Carolina has. It's not to James Madison. However, with that being said, Georgia Southern, I think they are starting to turn things around here in the second half of the year. So I'm going with Georgia Southern in this case. I think they play a little bit spoiler and really help James Madison in terms of ensuring their path to the Sun Belt title game. All right. Utah and Baylor coming up here. I'm going to go with Utah. Utah been one of the more dominant teams in the country, as long as they're not playing BYU and Texas Tech, who's looked really good in their own right. Utah, a 2-loss Utah, man, with the way that they've been playing, I think 10-2 would be good enough to get into the college football playoff. We'll have to wait and see how that unfolds. But we'll go with Utah winning against Baylor. Delaware against Sam Houston State. Listen, I think Sam Houston did have some lady luck on their side, able to pull that upset off against Oregon State. I don't think that strikes twice in a row here. Delaware playing some solid ball here. They're 1 win away from bowl eligibility. I think we have a lot more to play for than Sam Houston, aside from pride. Give me the Delaware Blue Hens in order to achieve bowl eligibility. And if there's not enough bowl eligible teams, I hope Delaware does get an opportunity to participate in the postseason, because they would have earned the opportunity to do so. Okay, Ole Miss and Florida on deck. All right, so Florida, they're just coming off of a butt whooping against Kentucky, and what that tells me essentially is that Florida is pretty checked out for the year. Ole Miss with everything to play for at this point. This win would lock them in, and according to the CIP eliminator that we do, give me Ole Miss to win that game. Utah State and UNLV, first year on Dan Mullen. It's been going pretty well, and UNLV definitely in that Mountain West title hunt. They got those 2 losses in conference play. They're hosting Utah State, where Utah State, they've been playing some solid ball, not a liquid or a gas by any means. So give me UNLV to win that game. They'll get UNLV bumped up to 8-2 on the year. Washington with a horrific loss last weekend to Wisconsin. They are at home for this one, and they're coming off of a disappointing loss, to put it really lightly here. Purdue has been the worst team in the Big Ten, and it's not even close. Give me the Washington Huskies being able to bounce back and get the win. Florida State taking on Virginia Tech. Listen, Florida State, I don't know what's happened to Florida State ever since they finished the entered ACC conference play, but Florida State's been absolutely horrific. But I do think Florida State bounces back against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, they've already fired a coach. The interim coach thing is starting to wear off. I think Florida State finds a way to win. It probably won't be too terribly pretty, though. And the same thing for Ohio State and UCLA. Ohio State's been dominating everybody all season long. And I expect that to continue with UCLA. Okay, Georgia and Texas. We're going to dive into this one more later this week. This will be a top 25 preview that we will preview later on this week. Here's the thing. I think Georgia's going to win the game at home. I think they're a better coach team right now than Steve Sarkisian. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people expect. I expect this to be kind of like a shootout, but I think Georgia is going to be able to prevail. I think that advantage in coaching is going to really provide some dividends, and they just had Texas numbers as of late. That's another thing too. Missouri against Mississippi State. I'm going to go with Missouri because I don't think that Mississippi State's going to be able to find a way to stop Ahmad Hardy. And I think Matt Solers, I think we see him be a little bit closer to what we saw in the Vanderbilt game than what we saw in Texas A&M. Plus, Texas A&M is an absolutely they are an absolutely electric team as well. So I mean, not looking good against Texas A&M. Certainly not a problem at all. Looking forward to seeing that Georgia and Texas simulation game that VW Production does on his channel. Make sure you go ahead and check that out. Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State, big game in the Conference USA. This could very well decide who hosts the CUSA Championship, because whoever has the best conference record, they do get the host. They're not one of these conferences that have an established neutral site. Jacksonville State, man, under Charles Kelly, they have played really well under him. Kennesaw State, they've also done extremely well. It's going to be a swing game either way. So, I mean, it could go in either direction. I'm siding with Jacksonville State. I think Kennesaw State is a little bit better team on paper, but Jacksonville State at home, I trust them a little bit more at this time. Louisiana Tech and Washington State. We're going to roll with Washington State here. Louisiana Tech, they've really been fading down the stretch. And like Washington State, they're still trying to find a way to get to a bowl game, right? I believe, where is Washington State? How have they been doing this year? They are sitting at 4-5. So, this is a game that Washington State definitely needs. Louisiana Tech making that cross-country road trip does not bode well for them. BYU taking on TCU. They had that tough loss against Texas Tech, but it's a refocus spot. I do like the spot for BYU, while TCU, they've been good, but they haven't been great, and I think that shows on the field. So give me Brigham Young over TCU. Fresno State and Wyoming should be another interesting one. Next two games in the Mountain West should be very fascinating. Fresno State and Wyoming pretty even on the field. Going to lean towards Fresno State because of the fact that they do have that home field advantage on their side. Give me the Bulldogs in that spot. And then Boise State and San Diego State. This is a big game here for both teams. They both only have one conference loss. So whoever wins this game is going to have going to be a really fascinating game to see how it goes down, right? Because, all right, here's the thing. If this game happened last week, I would have a lot more confidence in San Diego State than I do now. We just saw Boise State get absolutely dog walked by Hawaii, and then Boise State, we saw them a couple of weeks ago get dog walked by Fresno State. So I really don't feel good about either of these teams at all. I'm gonna roll with Boise State here. I think Boise State's a little bit more of a complete team. I don't know, man. That one's gonna be a tough one to call for sure, man. It's gonna be something I'm gonna definitely tune in if my son happens to be awake, because sometimes he wakes up in the middle of the night. So, guys, that is gonna do it for us here, man. We just picked every single FBS matchup. So, with that being said, guys, here's the list of all the picks. Let me know in the live chat or in the comment section if you're watching this after the fact, whether you agree with me or disagree with any of my picks. Definitely let me know. But guys, we are going to be in store for a great week 12. We're going to go ahead and get settled in here to watch these college football playoff rankings. They're going to go down soon, as well as watch some glorious action on our TV screen, man. I'm very excited for it. But with that being said, I am your host, College Football Red Zone, getting ready to sign off, but hope you guys are all out there having a good night. Take care.